Welcome everyone to the After School Special. My name is Allison, and today we have Laurel Stearns joining us. Laurel is a music industry vet who has worked within the management and label spaces for over 25 years, including Capitol Records, Red Light Management, and she's currently with Primary Wave. Some of the artists she's worked with include Father John Misty, the Decemberists, US Girls, and Red Fang, and many more. So first of all, thanks so much for your time.
Totally.
I'm really excited to be chatting with you today, and yeah. So the past few days I've been doing a ton of research on you and listening to listening to a podcast you did back in January. So the first thing I want to start with is you grew up in Palm Springs.
I did.
Which is very retirement community.
Mm-hmm.
And
the newlywed and the nearly dead.
There you go. And somehow you fell into punk rock music.
Mm-hmm.
And your first concert was Black Flag at age 12?
Yes. Yeah.
That's so funny.
It was, getting to see a band in Palm Springs was a pretty rare event to happen. People didn't really go there. And, the people that were there at that moment in time, now it's obviously like this buzzing hub of, not at the moment, but the Coachella world has taken over, lifestyle has taken over, and, when I lived there as a kid, it was a place where, like I said, the newlywed and the nearly dead, people would get married there and leave, or they would go to retire. And I was a very interested child. I was interested in everything, and especially music. So, digging into my father's collection as a kid, it was like show tunes and Cat Stevens and Meatloaf and Chuck Mangione. And I started to dig into okay, what else is there? And I somehow at school, I don't even really remember how. I know my cousins had turned me on to punk rock. They lived in Massachusetts, and WBCN at the time played a lot of punk music and new wave music. And they were older. They taught me about the Talking Heads and Blondie and, the Vibrators and all these exotic artists to me at the time. And my hunger for it was insatiable. And at some point in time, some way, I figured out as a 12-year-old that Black Flag was coming to Palm Springs, and they played a disco called Rumors, and they destroyed it. I mean, but my thought about them was that, wow, you guys, you're in Palm Springs, like you work that hard, like you tour that much, you play so everywhere. And that left an impression on me of what you did as a band to be seen and heard. So I was definitely taken by the thoroughness of their touring, their routing. Palm Springs, okay. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a really interesting observation for a 12-year-old to make in general.
I just couldn't believe it, I couldn't believe that a band would come to Palm Springs. I didn't think that was, I thought that was odd. It was such a unique experience for all of us there, the 20 punk rockers that lived in the desert area, the lower desert area, very different than the high desert. And we were little outcasts in Palm Springs. But we were very identifiable, and strong identity in the punk rock community was always something that I think people were looking for, oh, you have this very striking appearance. What's up with you? And we all came together that way.
So that must have meant a lot to you then when a band came through to Palm Springs and you and the other punk rockers in town could finally see them. Do you think that moment kind of left an impression on you that you carried through your career, or kind of gave you a passion for the industry from that moment on?
Well, I didn't know what the industry was at that time, but I did know that there were networks, because I was sending my money in envelopes to get fanzines, to get cassette tapes, to find where is there more? where else can I find this? This community, the scene of people. How else can I access this? So I was sending money, like actual cash in an envelope, to places all around the world. I mean, to London, I was sending envelopes for, catalogs and cassette GWAR and all these different areas of music that were, not mainstream. That was the underground. And so I knew there was a network. I knew there was a community. I didn't know how it worked, but I usually got responses. I would say 95% of the time, if I was like writing to the UK subs fan club, I would get a response. And it was really powerful. And basically, this whole thing was a thing that I realized, all right, there are people that are working, I guess you could say, behind the scenes. I wasn't sure if it was the bands responding or if it was like business people. I didn't know, but I was happy that there were people answering these emails, these letters, actual physical envelopes. So I knew I wanted to be a part of it. I knew I wanted to join this community, join this, alternative way of finding music, because I knew how my dad found music. He joined I think it was the Columbia House, where he would send, these little stamps with a penny, and you would get X amount of records. I knew he was a part of, it was a very weird club. It was an interesting club called Columbia House. And I knew that's how my parents got albums, but I always had a passion of doing things my own way and not necessarily following the simian flock.
Nice. And then I know you joined a few bands, I think, when you were 14. So was that your first attempt at trying to get more into music?
Well, I never really wanted to be in a band. It was kind of almost like peer pressure. Where, again, the look, I had a very specific look. And I think I looked like I should be in a band at that point in time. And so my teenage friends were like, you should be the front person. And I was in two different bands. Actually, the drummer of one of the bands was the original drummer for Sons of Caius, or Caius, and Queens of the Stone Age. So that was Fredo. But it was fun. I remember reading our first review in Maximum Rock and Roll, and they compared me to one of my heroes in the punk rock scene at that time, a woman named Polly Styrene, who was the front woman of X-Ray Specs. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, this is dream coming true. And it just, I knew this was leading into a bigger world out there, because I was like, wait, that band's from the UK. It all started kind of the pieces started falling together in a way. There is something here. What is this and how does it work? But again, it was never this is, I guess I never really defined a goal, in my life with music. I just knew I wanted to be a part of it. I never said I want to be a manager or I want to be an A&R person. I couldn't define it. I just knew I had to be a part of it, because ultimately in life, what I feel with this particular occupation, career, it's a lifestyle. It's not really something you check in and check out of. It's a lifestyle. And I never wanted to check out. I know, okay, don't call me after 6. I don't believe in that. I'm like, call me anytime. I'm like, let's get this done, or whatever, whatever the project is. I really feel you have to kind of live it, and I don't mind doing that, because I really enjoy it.
That's really great.
Yeah.
And so I find it funny that even in that review, when you got compared to one of your idols, even at that point, being on stage still wasn't what you wanted to do. Like, that didn't sway you at all. You were very stern on that.
I did not want to be on the stage. I would rather be in the audience or behind the stage, never on the stage. That was not something that I felt was my calling.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but like through your early career, I guess, when you went from being in the bands to doing the working for a magazine and then working in the studio and then kind of going into management from there, it almost seems like your passion slowly took you deeper and deeper into the actual industry. Yes. And like just took you further into it.
Yeah, I think when it comes to, management is like you're really the closest to the core of the operation. I loved my early learning, especially working in recording studios. I worked in some amazing studios here in LA, as an operations person, and learning how to make a record. It is the most important part, because if you don't have a great record, it's going to be tough. So it is the beginning of everything, of a great review, of a great whatever it may be. It comes from the making of the record first. And getting that information and that experience was incredible. And some of the records I got to witness being made were insane. I cannot believe some of the people that I got to be in, from Bowie to Rod Stewart to, there's Ozzy, the Pixies, so many, and just seeing these people do what they do in a great setting with amazing producers and engineers. That's, if that doesn't inspire you, then I don't know what does. So after that, I did go into management from working in recording studios, and I then got to continue working with some of my heroes. Working with my first round in management, I was really young, because I left Parsons School of Design and Art. I didn't finish it. I dropped out. So I was a teenager when I started earning a living on my own in music. And I was really young, a very young manager in my early 20s. I probably 21. And basically, getting to work with the Descendants. That was one of my favorite bands as a kid growing up around punk rock. And when they came back together to put out Everything Sucks, I to see my name on the copy of that record, I was like, okay, I'm done. I've done everything I've ever needed to do. Yeah, it was pretty great. And, again, try and do the things you love. Find those, whatever it may be. I feel like when you put that out there, and no one, if you don't speak, if you don't talk about it, no one will hear you. People can't read your mind. So I was constantly talking about music and showing up at shows and being a part of the community. I wasn't waiting for anything. There was no wait. If I could give anyone any advice who is starting in this community now, it's a lot harder, because you can't go to shows at the moment. You can't, be a part of the community outside, but there are a lot of even someone tuning into this, they're showing up. If someone's going to watch, this, school night piece, it's they're showing up, they're connecting with this community. And you gotta apply yourself to anything you want to do, and really apply yourself if that's the end game. So, yeah.
Definitely. That's such a good piece of advice. And one thing I want to say really quickly before I go on is I keep referencing the podcast in January, but I haven't said the actual name yet. Yeah. So for anyone watching, the podcast is really good. It's an hour and a half long, and you go into a lot of detail about your early career and even up till where you are now. And it was for Jed Banger's Ball, with, I want to make sure I pronounce his name right, so correct me if I'm wrong, but Jed Mayhew?
Mayhew, yeah.
So I'll put a link in the description of this video because anyone watching this should definitely check that one out. So it seems like you have a very nurturing and caring quality about yourself in terms of the artists that you work with and the projects that you work on. So do you think that plays a big part in your management style?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I would say, when it comes to being a manager, and certain styles aren't for everybody. So it really is true. Like, and it's why, it's not always why like people get hired and fired and, but certain people have certain things that they need, and certain dispositions that they feel that they want to work alongside. I definitely have more of I don't really want to know everything. There's a line, where I'm just like, okay, like there is a line, but if somebody's, I'm usually pretty empathetic about if something's up, I'm going to be there for sure. But I don't normally get very involved in like personal lives, but like if there are things happening that I feel like are affecting the overall human being, because we're all human. This is a business of humans. And, I'm not dealing with like, oh, my coffee crop died this year, I mean, the coffee beans aren't talking back to me, it's like, I'm dealing with people all day long. So, if that person, if I can feel they're off or something's up or they just don't want to deal, or I really can't do that photo shoot today because they lost a friend or it's like, and even if it's really important and there was a lot put into this shoot for said magazine or whatever it may be, well, we got to figure it out because, they are human and you got to keep that quality in it because we're not machines. We are people. I know we're living in a very digital, flat machine age in a way, but we are still people. So
Yeah, that's really, really important.
mm-hmm.
And then how else do you think your management style has been influenced by your past experience? Because you've been in bands, you've been in studios, you've been on the A&R label side. So how do you think those past experiences have influenced your management style now?
That's a good question. I would say that all of those experiences have given me they've given me tools to have an understanding of a lot of different areas. As if you're a manager, you have to understand all the areas anyway, because you are the hub of the wheel, and everything spokes out from, there's the artist, and you're right alongside in the middle, and you're dealing with publishers, and you're dealing with lawyers, and you're dealing with the label, and you're dealing with the, publicists, and you're dealing with retail marketing or digital marketing. Like, having an understanding and having a grasp on all of it, how to make a record, which is a good way to execute things, how to talk to your publicist about damage control if there's something that's been said, like all of those things are our job. I mean, a manager's job primarily is to create infrastructure and opportunity. That's what we do. But when it comes to, having, I was never someone who learned from reading books, really. I'm a immersive learner. I need to just be thrown in it and just told to go. And that's how I've learned pretty much everything. I never really had a mentor. I had people that, employed me for long periods of times and kept me there. So I guess I did a good job. But, I definitely, no, I did do a good job. I'm not going to say, I guess. That's something people shouldn't say. You did or you didn't. And basically, I learned from just being in the middle of things, which is I think a gift to be able to have the experiences. And I'm really happy that I was given those opportunities. And, once you're given an opportunity, show up, do it. And ask for help if you need it. Don't let the ego get in your way about asking for help. Probably could have asked for help a little bit more, but You learn, you live and you learn.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all really, really great advice. Perfect. So now going into a bit more COVID specific chat.
Yay.
How were yeah, how were ways you approach or handled the sudden halt of COVID? I know that the album Leaves had 3 movie scores during the COVID time, but how were other ways you kind of dealt with that or used it to your advantage with artists, or maybe not advantage, but used the
Yeah.
time?
Well, what's basically like, of course, no one's touring, so we stopped that. I've had 3 albums come out during this time period. 2 of them were already underway. This band Moaning on Sub Pop and US Girls on 4AD Beggars, they already had singles coming out. There was nothing we could do. Like, you can't just stop it after like 2 singles, 2 videos. It's like, what are we going to do? Wait till when? It's still happening. But so we kept going. We, created a lot of a lot of videos have been created. Meg, a lot of people I've found, this is very interesting. I think people are paying a lot more attention to how she makes her records as of late, because we're getting a lot more production and co-writing, and like people are approaching her for those things a little bit more than they ever have. So that I was like, wow, okay, that means people are listening to your album in a different way and realizing what you've been doing to create these albums, because she has a pretty she's recording in a way that the record she just made, you couldn't make that record right now. There's a moment where there are multiple people singing into one mic. That wouldn't be possible right now, So interesting to look at these things happen, though. Like, she's getting called upon to create and produce and talk to other artists about production and co-writing. So one artist, though, like Moaning, they are working on a TV show that they sold to Comedy Central. So one of the artists in that band is an animator, an illustrator. He's incredible.
Oh, nice.
And so they've been pretty focused on, and it does center around their group. So, if that TV show on Comedy Central is successful, it will be a platform for their band. They weren't able to tour. We had tours lined up, but that's not happening. They're a new band. So, they're a young group out of LA. They made an amazing record, Sub Pop, great label to come out on, and they can't tour it. And that's a huge part of a young band's career. They're not a YouTube star. They're not a TikToking band. They're like a, very traditional get in the van and tour band, 3-piece. And we'll see now with, again, if this show becomes successful, there's a platform for them. Kaitlyn Aurelia Smith, her record came out in May. We didn't hold it back due to the nature of her music, calming, environmental, atmospheric. We actually ended up premiering the record for 2 weeks before it was released on Ghostly in the Calm app. So that was it was a great call, because it was listened to 1 million times before it ever came out to the public inside the app. And
yeah, the Calm app is a really smart option for that. That's really interesting.
It was a good idea, and it was something that I had immediately thought of right when I took her on. So it wasn't necessarily COVID inspired, but it served the time period really well. The minute I took her on, I went after Calm to see if they would do this, and and it's just, it was a no-brainer to do something like that. It just lends to it. So that worked really well. The streaming space, we haven't gotten too into doing the paid live, so we've done one. It was interesting. I love a good live stream. I would not say it's my favorite thing, but I do. It's necessary, and I also think it will be here after we open up. Like I think streaming will now take a step into the forefront. A lot of the niche things like streaming and virtual experiences, all AI, like all these things are now like in the forefront. They weren't before. They were like these niche things that were cool that maybe you do, but now they're like, okay, all of this moved to the front. And there's a lot of really great companies that are popping up, creating good experiences, platforms that I think will be used and basically, be additional add-ons to when we do open up in hopefully, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years. We'll see. I don't know it's hard to say, but yeah. So like I managed this other band called Red Fang, and they had this gambling idea that they wanted to create a gambler's pack because everybody's at home. Like, oh, so we've partnered up with some notable people, and that will be announced fairly soon. I guess I could say it with the Psycho Vegas guys, and couldn't be a better partnership because Psycho Vegas and Red Fang and gambling makes sense. So that will be a nice, merchandise initiative, which I think is something that people are, where you can buy this pack. It's like a custom deck of cards that's all Red Fang, characters and dice that are customized, and it's the whole thing. So
that's such a great idea.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It'll be available next week. We're going on sale. So yeah, this is these are all things that like you just you look at what's actually happening and you figure out what is needed, and that's we're in that place right now where we get to sit and reflect on what do we need? Like, how do we do it? So having ideas is great, and then you execute them.
Nice. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to bring up is the article you wrote back in June called "It's Time for Independent Venues, Bookers, Agents, and Managers to Turn Up the Volume in Washington."
Yeah.
And that was about NITO, which is the National Independent Talent Organization, which is a nonprofit group who was formed to advocate for the survival of the live music community through COVID. So I'd love to hear you talk a bit about that, but also what people can do and what initiatives the music community itself can take to really push this.
So important.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was invited to a NITO town hall. I know a lot of the people that founded it, and the connectivity, the community coming together like that blew my mind. I had never written an op-ed. I have written in the past, but I had texted a friend over at Variety, Shirley, who's amazing, and I was like, you have to learn about this. Like, check this out. This is incredible. Like, all of these people who are normally competitors, they're friends too, but are all on this call, and we're all trying to like save our businesses. And it was so powerful. She's like, I don't need to write this. You do. And I was like, okay. So I wrote the article, and I got that bug to like, I gotta help. What do we do? What do we do? And what you can do, what we can all do, because basically what NITO and NIVA are doing are, and other organizations as well, like Live Events Coalition, which there was an event downtown recently, and they had asked for NITO. So NITO joined forces with them, and I got involved in that event and brought Mike Ness down to speak because we needed like an artist perspective, and he was very gracious and joined us. Or joined them, us. But basically, we have our lobbyists working with Congress to keep the PPP going, keep these loans that are being given, like to create like forgiveness, like up to 90% or more, because these businesses, NITO are agents and managers. NEVA are the venues. We have different tax codes, so we cannot. We're lobbying essentially for the same thing, but we're in different tax brackets, in the eyes of the government. So we have two different initiatives rolling that are very much working alongside each other closely. So the world that we're entering is a world of no one is bankrolled to be able to have no income for a year and a half. Like that, I mean, for small companies, that doesn't happen. And obviously for a lot of big companies, they're laying people off too. I mean, it's decimating this business, and we're basically rallying as hard as we can with our lobbyists to make noise, have them hear us, have them support the restart bill, which is in consideration, have them pass it and have it become legislature so they can basically support all of these companies, because these companies are in danger of not existing. And the reopening, I don't know how it will look next year. It's a giant question mark. But everybody can write their representatives. They can go to NITOlive.org and write. Artists could, doing things that are unique really help. Like if people were to write a song, or if artists were to write songs to the government, or I know that sounds goofy, but like these are the things that are different, that aren't just white noise, absolutely tweet, absolutely write. They are getting these letters and these tweets on the regular, doing things that stand out, like what the Live Events Coalition have been doing was mind-blowing to me. I got so inspired seeing they're basically doing installations. They're setting up events that no one is at, and they're empty events. It's incredible because they have access to everything, to tables, to chairs, to barricades, to lighting, to trellises. They have all of this because that's what they do. So they're setting up these events with speakers and no audience. And they are, creating socials, creating press awareness. Those are great, impactful things that the government will see that. And, we're the people. We have to speak up or no one will hear us. So everybody can write and push to create this awareness. It doesn't even matter who you are. If you want to go to a concert, if you want to be able to experience live music again in the near future, write your representatives. It's that easy. And the amount of revenue that an event that takes place in a city can bring. There was a number I'd heard the other day. I don't remember what specific city, but I would imagine it's similar in all cities when events happen. For every ticket dollar that's paid for generates $12 in the city's economy, whether it's getting a hotel, having a bite to eat, all the things, gas, the electric bills that are on inside the venues, like these all affect revenue and people adding to the economy. So you turn all of that off. You take away from those hotels, you take away from those restaurants, you take away from the DWP, you take away from all of it. And that's a problem. It's a real thing. It's not just, the shows are gone. It's tons of livelihoods and so on. So yeah.
Definitely, yeah. It's really important. And I'll be sure to put the link to your article and then NITO and the one for the venues, which I forget the name of right now. I'll put all the links.
Yeah, great.
NEVA, yes. Yeah. I'll put all the links below for anyone watching this too so they can check that out.
Very cool.
So as a way to wrap up this interview, I thought this would be fun. So I found an interview that you did back in 2014 with Cedar Boshin for Auditrix.
Yes.
And he asked you these two questions then. The first is, what is less important now than it was 5 years ago? And in 2014, you said getting on the radio. So now I'm asking you the same question in 2020.
Well, what's less important now? I would say I still believe that because it's, getting on a playlist. That is pretty important in these times.
If anything, that answer is more true now with
Yeah.
With streaming and everything. So you already knew 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the second question from the interview was, what has grown in consequence over the past 5 years? And in 2014, you said the amount of competition for attention. So, if anything, might also be just as true, because with streaming,
yep,
you already knew the answer 6 years ago.
It's the same. I mean, now it's like, it's worse. So I'm going to stick to that. There's so many people vying for those spots on those playlists, on those like moments of like on the platforms that you get like called out for being important. And it's, I still believe in like adding up all these other impressions, other places to add up to a whole, and I think obviously touring is a big part of that. We don't have that right now. So that will come back. So right now, creating content that is quality, not just filler, but like really, whatever you're putting out there, stand behind it. Like, don't just put stuff out to put stuff out. It doesn't, I mean, some people, keep it going, just, crank out whatever you got going. I always think quality over quantity, and, less is more in that way. I still believe in that. You put out something really great, people will talk about it. They'll remember it. They'll share it. They might mimic it. They might, it'll continue on in its greatness as opposed to a lot of filler.
Definitely. Well, I'd say that's a great way to end it.
Cool, no filler.
So thank you so much again for your time and talking to me.
Thanks, Allison.
It was really great speaking with you, and I really appreciate it. Thanks so much to everyone who watched this interview with Laurel Stearns. Our next speaker announcement will be up soon, so keep an eye out.